All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Microsoft Ignite session presented to you by Icertis. We're going to talk about the power of AI in contracts and also about how there's new applications for AI and how those applications are relevant to retail. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you're able to, please come off your camera. Feel free to ask any questions using the chat. We will be typing questions back to you as we get it. And if we have time at the end, we'll answer it then. And I am George Painham-Kell. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management at Icertis, based out of our Bellevue office. For those of us, our guests who might be visually impaired, I am of Indian descent. I'm standing in my room on a cloudy day in the Seattle area. I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt, and occasionally you might see my dog walking by, and you might just catch the tip of her tail passing by the camera. All right, so today we're going to talk about just why contracts, and from there, what are the business challenges inherent to managing contracts that AI solves? Why and where AI fits in this life cycle. We'll go through a suite of our AI applications, and we'll do a brief demo of our AI Studio application. So with that, let's get started. So just at a very high level, right? Enterprise customers use multiple systems, right? They could be systems that manage customers like the CRM system, systems that manage employees, suppliers, transactions. Yet the outcome of every negotiation and the starting point of every operational partnership, the artifact that dictates how every dollar goes in and out of a business relationship is often just filed away and kept to come back to whenever there's a problem, right? In all these other platforms here that you see, they've got set processes to how you execute, what are the stages, but contracts that are ubiquitous, that process itself is organic. Often contracts are created by a series of emails, Word attachments, NAG mails to legal, which you might be familiar with. And this really means that a lot of valuable business time is lost, right? And there is an opportunity to utilize the vast trove of data to power your strategic and tactical goals. So the ICI portfolio, and ICI is Icertis Contract Intelligence. You'll hear me say ICI a few times today. At its foundational layer here, right? It's the core ICI platform layer, which provides the components to support core CLM processes, contract lifecycle management. So it supports things like setting up a contract quickly, tracking contract workflows, post-execution administration, and reporting on those outcomes, which translates to the time to value. To the right of that are our business applications. These are specialized applications which provide focused and integrated business scenario-specific capabilities. So for example, one of the ones you see here are the promotions and rebates. This enables you to leverage contract data to quickly plan, execute, and settle promotions with your partners. So for example, Best Buy used our platform to reduce their rebates and promos contract turnaround time by 70%. These are supported by various integration adapters to connect with our upstream and downstream systems to help you surface contract data in business applications that you use day to day. And of course, we have our ICI AI applications here, which includes Discover AI, Negotiate AI, Visualize AI, and AI Studio, to name a few. So, to set the stage, right? One of the most common misconceptions with AI is to focus on automation rather than the augmentation of human decision-making and interactions. Right? Often, a single resource who may not be legal or a compliance expert is taking in hundreds of contracts, and it could be many resources taking in dozens or hundreds of contracts, and it's reliant upon them to ensure that the salient details about the contracts are captured and handed into other tracking systems. So this could example be information about like the rebate qualifications, which may be buried deep in a clause in the contract, or it could be in an attached exhibit. But there is a lot of highly valuable implicit and explicit data buried in these contracts. So for starters, right, the data is often just unstructured. Like, what do you get often? It might be a scanned PDF, It could be a Word document. It could be in better scenarios a digitized PDF, but that's all it is. At best, it's often just a flat file with data that you can search on, or it's a scanned PDF that you can't even search. Within in this unstructured data, you would find commercial terms like pricing tables, payment schedules. You might find operational terms such as how payments are to be done, how resources are to be shared. You might have data around obligations. These are things like you shall, you will, the conditions under which a rebate is executed, things like that. And these are often triggered based on events that are identified within the contract. Then there is also implicit data, right? Like the cycle time of a contract. Does working with a certain party, let's say a supplier, does that have an impact on how long it takes to execute a contract? Right. And in addition, there's also information about business relationships across a vast trove of data. And these are especially relevant if you might be in a situation where there are historic business relationships that you might not be familiar with. So similar to like an M&A situation, or if you're loading legacy documents that go back many years. And additionally, there's also commitments, entitlements, durations, penalties, SLAs, discounts, regulation information. All of that is in these unstructured files. Now, if you think about the business outcomes, I mean, there's multiple business outcomes that we can look at across the industry, but if we look at retail, for example, right, when you're dealing with manually with large volumes of data, there's real world consequences. So for example, promotions, incentive agreements, and market development contracts are maintained in different repositories often, right? And this slows down promotion settlement because there's no single source of truth available to the merchant or the category manager, which can lead to promotion underperformance. The inability to quickly plan and launch promotions based on data insights from past performance often results in ineffective promotions and rebate programs. Supply chain disruptions, right? This pandemic highlighted global and domestic supply chain vulnerabilities, and which drove an urgency to realign supply chains quickly and identify alternate sources of supplies and to onboard suppliers with faster contracting. In fact, one of our customers, a very large food producer, used AI to determine which one of their thousands of customers they were contractually bound to supply in the event of a disruption. And then operations spanning multiple jurisdictions require companies to deepen their cybersecurity competencies, especially in CCPA, GDPR, data privacy, and export restrictions. And also there are restrictions on how you can utilize behavioral, personally identifiable information to drive personalized pricing and promotions. These requirements can also be buried deep in contracts. And across the board, the ability to analyze at scale, right? AI analyses and processes can reduce the effort and time spent by orders of magnitude, which frees up your human intellectual bandwidth to focus on more critical business tasks rather than the mundane data filling, data entry type tasks. And outside of this, across all businesses, you can use contracts and AI to drive negotiations, plug revenue leakage, improve compliance, and ultimately freeing up your human resources for more critical tasks. Now, why, when we talk about why AI, right here is just a very high level view of, and very high level view of what an architecture might be, right? So on the left here, you have an agreement pipeline, and you might have legacy documents coming in. You might have large, like hundreds, thousands, even millions of contracts coming in as part of an M&A effort or a digital transformation effort. In the middle, you have an operational stack, which is the core platform, storage of data, the contract data model, and integrations with key business systems. And all of these are sources of data, right? And to the right, you might have many downstream uses of the platform for negotiation, for risk mitigation, contract compliance, or even ongoing third-party paper intake. Now, we have applications that fit into multiple areas here to increase the time to value and also help you utilize data within the platform more easily. So what these apps do across the ecosystem is, you digitize the contracts, which Digitizing it is way more, in our context, it's way more than just simply scanning and doing OCR, right? I mean, that's table stakes. This is about identifying the context of every paragraph, every clause, every attribute within an unstructured contract and cataloging it so that you can report on it and utilize that data in the future. The intra-contract structure, right? AI looks inside your contract and amendments to identify risks in a contract or what the impact of an amendment is. The inter-contract structure, AI also looks across your connected contracts, so such as an NDA, an MSA, or an SOW, to see where there's a discrepancy in terms across those connected documents. The external data interplay, right? You can look at payment terms across contracts and compare it to your ERP system to see where maybe payments are being made in advance of what's required, real financial impact there. And you can imagine how payment terms could actually differ across thousands or hundreds of thousands of contracts. In fact, one of our customers used AI to look across their literally hundreds of thousands of contracts to find available rebates and discounts, which they would have otherwise missed. So let me take a deeper dive into what our individual applications are, right? So if you look across just very high level business outcomes, you might want to rapidly intake data, use that data to power negotiations, ensure that you are compliant, and accelerate the user experience. So the way our suite of AI applications sit is to rapidly intake data. Discover AI allows you automated metadata, tagging, clause tagging, intaking tabular data, and also obligation discovery. And I'll show you a couple of screenshots of this later, so it's a little bit more clear. AI Studio similarly is used to execute this action, but you do it in real time on large sets or subsets of data, which don't even have to be inside the contract management platform, right? It could quite literally be a zip file with thousands of documents, and an end user can wield AI and generate insights from this. And I'll do a demo of this later. Negotiate AI automates aspects of the contract review process to reduce cycle times. And you do it, sorry, next slide, and you do it directly from an integrated Microsoft Word add-in. This also includes the legal playbook integration, which I will talk about as well. There's other apps that utilize like risk management with AI, which does risk predictions based on automated analyses of documents. Obligation AI, which discovers obligations and creates and tracks fulfillments directly to improve compliance. And I will speak a little bit more about each of these applications, but a core part of when we develop our AI applications is the belief that AI is only as good as the end user's ability to use it. Right? You can create fascinating models and all, but if an end user is not able to wield it easily, then it doesn't live up to its potential. So we also invest in creating applications that are easy to use. So the Visualize AI application is just a click and drag view to deep dive into the data found inside contracts. We use AI to do natural language searching within the ICI platform. So for example, a user could quite simply type, show me all agreements created by me in the last year, which are MSAs that expire in the next 6 months. And we will, ICI, the platform, will produce the search results based on that instead of someone having to do complex clicking and filtering. And we also generate automated contract summaries that are specific to the role looking at it. So if procurement is looking at a contract, their view on it and what's important to them could be different than what legal is looking for, could be different from what finance is looking for. And AI generates automated contract summaries to satisfy each of those individuals. And each of these can be powered by AI models that are either out of box, can be custom built, or actual user created models. So these are end users creating models, not writing code, and they can load in data, they can identify the attribute that they're looking for, they can train the model, they can score the model, as well as view the tracking and the performance of this model over time. So very powerful capabilities put in the hand of the end users. So I'll do a quick overview of our apps before I go into the AI Studio demo. So the Discover AI app, right? This is used for bulk intake of large numbers of data, of large amounts of data, but it's also used for intake of third-party contracts, right? Often third-party contracts are just these flat files you get, and it is problematic to manage them in the same way that you would intake your own paper. So when you use Discover AI, the third-party contract is loaded into your platform. Each of the clauses are extracted and loaded into your clause library. All the attributes are loaded. And this allows you to digitize a third-party contract to work with it with the ease with which you would work with your own paper. I mean, this technology can be used for those single contracts as well as for large amounts. So let me show you just a quick overview with a couple of screenshots here, just to give you an idea versus me just talking about it. So, here's a simple view of someone loading a document, right? And in this case, we'll select third party. And from there, you'll notice that we've taken it in, but none of the data has been populated as yet. And as soon as you run AI analysis on this, all of the data that's within this third-party contract, and this could be a 2-pager, it could be a 20-pager, it could be a 200-pager. AI goes through this and identifies not just the words and the letters and all, but it understands the context of where these should be. So this is filled out automatically. The party names, the party address, the effective dates, the contract duration, payment terms, all of that is filled out automatically. And you can imagine if someone is intaking dozens of contracts a day or hundreds of contracts, the time savings just from me being able to do something this simple. And this is all driven from AI. So this is, again, beyond just OCRing and being able to search within the document. You're quite literally cataloging the data and bringing it into the platform. That's just the attributes. Beyond that, AI is also able to look at the text of the document and understand what are the clauses we're talking about, right? Is it a data security clause? Is it an audit? Is it a force majeure clause? And compare that to clauses you have within your library and tag it accordingly. And from here, you can review it and see exactly what the changes are between your standard clause library, your standard force majeure clause, and where this third-party contracts clause differs. And from there, you can trigger a deviation so you can track that and resolve it as you will. In the same way, a lot of contracts often have pricing tables or other data at the end. And Discover AI also understands what is a table, and it extracts the data from the table and presents it to you in a view from where you can triage and quickly add headers. So each of these appendix documents can be added as associated entries for an agreement for special tracking. Now, all of this data taken in is great, but what do you do with it, right? So outside of just using it for negotiations, which I'll talk about, you can use this data that comes in to get a whole holistic view across your contract portfolio, right? With integrated Power BI reports, you can take all of this data that's taken in across troves of documents and be able to rapidly execute searches, slice and dice data, and get a view across your enterprise. In special situations like what happened recently with COVID, you can look across and understand where you're contractually obligated in various regions by a force majeure clause, where your operations could be affected by a force majeure clause, which customers have a contract with force majeure clauses to help you understand where do your suppliers live, where's the global view of contracts, and across the board, where are there force majeure clauses in effect and where are they not? And this is just a snapshot of the capability. Now, after data has come in, how do you use it day to day for negotiations and how does that work? The Negotiate AI application gives insights, AI-powered insights from the familiar experience of Microsoft Word, right? So with this, you can easily analyze high volumes of lengthy contracts, understand their component terms and clauses, and find similar precedents from across the company's entire contract repository. So this enables users to, one, update the contract language and terms based on best practices from similar contracts or from historical deals negotiated with maybe the same counterparty. It also allows users to accept, update, or reject terms and do all of that directly from Microsoft Word. The app also allows users to embed a legal playbook to provide contractual guardrails and fallback terms for anyone in the organization evaluating a contract. So let me show you a couple of screenshots. So for one thing, right, the UI here, it's simple. It's embedded into Microsoft Word. It's very accessible, easy to use. And this is an example where someone's taken in a third-party contract. And directly from here, you can launch the discovery process. So you can discover the attributes and clauses, view similar agreements, or you can go directly into a playbook. And what Negotiate AI will do is instantly break down any contract into its component clauses and attributes for fast analysis, right? These are third-party agreements where all of this is meaningless text till AI is running on it. And you can quickly analyze these third-party contracts and maybe you can find those that do not match standard templates using AI. You can quickly find similar clauses and contracts from your entire contract repository. You can update contract terms based on best practices from similar contracts or from past deals. And you can create deviations and route clauses to the right people for review and approval directly from this experience. And many companies will have their own legal playbooks, and this legal playbook can be built into Negotiate AI as well, which allows you to have negotiation guardrails to help resources, including those who are very new to the organization. And the benefit here is Negotiate AI is automatically finding the clauses that are relevant to the playbook, right? You can build a playbook, but how do you know when to bring in a certain analysis from the playbook in? That's where Negotiate AI helps by understanding the context of all of these terms and the attributes. It does exception analysis. Maybe the payment terms fall outside of norms, or the value of a PO is higher than a certain threshold. It does a risk assessment. You can integrate fallback positions, or you can just report out the risk inherent in a particular contract, right? So the people in your organization, right, the seasoned negotiators and counsels may have historical or tribal knowledge. This allows you to bring insights from the contracts and resources across your organization, right? Again, upscaling the intellectual bandwidth of all and allowing you to take your best resources and arm them with data. The Visualize AI app. Now, contracts are a classic example of unstructured data, right? There's often no way to discover patterns and relationships across large volumes of contracts without painstaking manual reviews. Corporate contracts tend to be dispersed between different departments, divisions, and regions, which makes it difficult to achieve consistency and learn from contracting best practices or get views across your various vendors and customers across contracts. The Visualize AI application enables you to quickly find and load a large volume of contract data, navigate relationships, and easily discover patterns. And the app derives contextual insights from contract data by first recognizing the patterns and relationships that exist within the ICM contract data, and then linking it to other contracts and even to outside sources of information like Dun & Bradstreet. So this enables users and groups to link contracts based on their status, their risk level, or other attributes like the vendor or the supplier, and then navigate across the entire contract portfolio based on these insights. And all of this is done from a very visually appealing UI and in a very simple way. So for example, the app can enable you to visually click down on all in-progress contracts, which might have a certain level of financial risk or contract risk, like the presence of an unlimited liability clause, for example. From here, you can click down and you can directly take action on specific contracts. Like, for example, you can put a high-risk contract on hold. So obligation AI, right? Any contract could have dozens, if not hundreds of obligations embedded within the contract that create contractual risk. What Obligation AI does is it'll automatically discover, extract, and set up obligations from any contract. From there, within the UI itself, again, it's one thing to find these obligations. It's another to be able to put it in a manner that's usable for customers easily. So it takes these obligations and can auto-generate fulfillments out of these as trackable items for internal users or for third parties. These obligations and fulfillments can be assigned based on internal and external rules, and reassignments can be automatically handled, and that could happen due to transfers or departures from the organizations. And these rules can also allow you for these AI discovered obligations to automatically cascade and enforce obligations across related agreements. So things like, flowing from MSAs to SOWs. Excuse me. And when you take all of this, what you get is not just a view of your compliance level for a given agreement, but you get compliance insights across the enterprise to give a holistic view of your overall compliance portfolio. And just as a quick case study, right? Like in these are the areas that I get personally excited about, where customers are using our AI technologies for real world benefits. So a large global pharma company used our platform, and their problem was that they had a large number of documents across which the information about the rebates and discounts was not clearly visible to them. And they had many third-party supplier contracts with complex pricing tables, and it was very hard to negotiate. So they utilized Discover AI and Negotiate AI, and were able to generate these insights and the rebates and financial information from these contracts, and resulted in them saving about 43% of the time compared to them having to do this through manual processes. And they were able to enforce compliance on agreement transactions for better control over rebates and leakage. The really great thing about this was that this was done over 500,000 documents covering 100,000 contracts. That's the volume that Discover AI and Negotiate AI were able to use. So let me quickly jump into a quick demo of AI Studio as well. It's something that we've recently released, and you'll hear me say AI Workbench. We renamed it, and I recorded this just before then. So let me kick that off. So here we have the ICI platform, and I'll click on AI Workbench to start the experience. There's a number of other analyses that have already been conducted that you can see, but I'll start a new one this time, and I'll quickly name it and select data source. Now you see here there's multiple different types of data that you can use, and it doesn't have to be data that's in ICI. I can quite simply upload files. So in this case, I will drag and drop a set of agreements. This is a number of procurement agreements that came in, and it was on my hard drive, and I'll just kick it off. And as it's running, you can do this on ICI documents as well, but it's good to have this ad hoc way, and you select the model you want to run on this. And I'll start the analysis. And there you go. The analysis is done now. And now I get a high level view of first, how many documents were processed, just simple information, how many attributes were discovered, how many tables, obligations, and such, right? But going a step deeper, now we start to look at, okay, across all of these contracts, what are the top attributes that pop up? What are the most common clauses that appear in each of these contracts? How many tables are there? How many obligations are discovered, and if so, like which obligations were discovered? Looking at attributes, looking at the number of attributes that we have discovered, we can see that, okay, these are all the suppliers that are mentioned. What is the total value of the contracts? What are the different types of expiry dates that are there in these contracts? Also, what are the payment terms across these contracts? These were all set in the model that we had selected earlier. These are procurement contracts. These are the type of data I'm interested in. So we find the type of contract details which are relevant to procurement as we specified in the model. And a lot of this information, to be able to aggregate it across just a random set of documents is very powerful. Now here I'm digging a little bit deeper. Maybe I saw a suggestion and I want to understand, hey, where did ICI find that suggestion? So I've gone directly into the agreement now, and I'm looking at payment terms, and I can click here and see, okay, you said it's 25 days. Where did you find it though? And I can see right here where ICI found it. And it's also showing me another place where something sounded like a payment term, but we're high confidence that that's not it. But it gave you the option to look at it so that you can understand that as well. So here we took a large number of ad hoc files, and we allowed our users to wield AI to accelerate their work and produce directly usable and consumable reports. I mean, you can take the visuals that you saw here and drop it directly into a set of slides, and you saw that you can dive directly into the contract data in the background in case you need to back up your presentation. Very powerful, and we're excited to bring this. All right, so thank you. That brings us to the end of our session. And hopefully this gives you an idea of how AI can create business value from contracts, how it can reduce your time to value and save time across the organization, how it can help you view and improve your compliance profile, and most of all, how AI is incorporated into scenarios beyond just simple data intake and automation. All right, so do we have any questions to answer?
Thanks, George. I know we got a few questions that just came in. Let's try and hit a couple real quick. One is, when a new customer buys a CLM platform, does it make sense to include AI to begin, or is it better to start with a basic system, learn it, and then add AI later?
Yeah, I would say that generally it's best to have AI off the bat, and that is because you're able to apply Discover AI and to all of what's typically a large trove of legacy documents which come in. Also, AI introduces a lot of workflows that it's great to have right at the beginning. So suppose you're onboarding a large number of users, it'll help you to have all those AI workflows embedded versus doing it after the fact.
Perfect. A couple more. One is, I want to limit risk by understanding compliance obligations across many different agreement formats. How does AI help with initial CLM setup, especially with many third-party paper agreements?
Sure. Yeah. So the compliance and obligations, that's where the obligation AI comes in. So the first part of it is, okay, just the discovery alone, right? So you discover what is an obligation and you present it to the user. So just in the user's context, you might load up a third-party contract, and you and it'll say that, okay, these are all the areas that look like obligations, and a user can go through those and say that, okay, create fulfillments out of this, and then the platform automatically takes that and creates fulfillments that are then trackable, and you can assign rules to it, you can assign dates to it, and all of that directly kicked off based off this obligation AI discovery.
Perfect. I know we're just pretty much at time, a little over, but last one is, for rebates and revenue leakage, how does Icertis AI help to capture these missed opportunities?
Yeah, so again, it's the rebates, revenue leakage. I mean, this comes from volume, right? When you have thousands of documents, or millions of documents, there's a lot of information in there that's not often captured. And with the AI models, they can look across these, thousands or hundreds of thousands of documents and start to understand, hey, where are the contracts where there's rebates available to you? And that's how it helps you discover your revenue leakage that's happening. We've had a customer actually who used it and found out that there was a services organization, and they found that they were not charging the same amount to their customers for their different employees based on their levels of seniority. And so when a customer had a long-term resource, for example, they had it in the contract, they had certain rates set. And so, but these resources had been promoted and they should have been charging more for them. And they were able to use AI to look across all of their contracts and to understand, hey, where are we contractually bound to charge a certain amount and where do we have leeway?
Fantastic. I know we're past time, so thank you so much, George. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you everyone for attending. Appreciate it.